semester. I taught this course last semester at a slightly earlier time. It started at 6:40. You guys are very kind to come to class this late. The reason why the class is 7 o'clock class is because I work in Lexington until 5 o'clock at the federal courthouse. And so then I get in my car and drive and listen to podcasts and the news, which is horrifying sometimes. But anyway, so that's why the class is so late. So I appreciate you all having the course at this hour. I thought we'd begin by going through some introductions. I'll introduce myself, and then I was hoping each of you all would introduce yourselves. And then my favorite thing about being a student when I was a student was having the first day of class, because it was like the stress-free day. Like, there was no reading. Well, and then you go to law school and there was reading in advance of class. I don't do that because the first day was always the best day. It's like syllabus day, and then you just leave and you have a week off, and we're going to do that. So, I mean, that's what we're doing. So we're going to review the syllabus. I'm going to talk about the structure of the course. I'll talk about the topics that are going to be covered during the semester. And then I will assign homework, but it'll be for next class, and it won't be any kind of substantive drafting exercise. There will be none of that yet. The homework will just be a reading assignment and just a series of articles that I've already posted. We're going to be using Twen this semester. You all know Twen. That's kind of the thing that I use. Did you all have a chance to sign that? Okay. We will be using Twen. That's what I like to use just because, frankly, I got used to it when I was a law student. And I think it really works well, especially for our course. You'll see tabs if you go on there. Obviously, everybody's internet. Has anybody seen the course yet? On there, it's already posted. The 2020 course. I had the 2019 course. Some of the same reading material we'll use from last semester, but the drafting exercises will be totally different. So it'll be good to register for the new spring 2020 course on Twen, and you'll see the syllabus there, which is also what we're going to discuss using the document camera. And then the reading assignments will be posted there. It's very organized. You'll see each week like what the reading assignment is, when it's supposed to be due, and then we'll post the drafting exercises there as well. So before I get into that, though, I thought I'd take a few minutes, just kind of give you some background on me. So I was originally born in Buffalo, New York, which I used to never tell people. I don't know why, but then the Buffalo Bills started to get good again. I was like, okay, I'm mildly proud of them. So yeah, I was born in Buffalo and then moved to Kentucky when I was just a kid, just 5 years old, which is my youngest daughter's age, and grew up in Lexington. Went to public school my whole life in Lexington, and then graduated from high school. Is anybody from Lexington? No, Lexingtonians. All right, that's okay. It's not that far or foreign of a place. And so graduated high school in Lexington, went to the University of Michigan for college. That's where I met my wife. And graduated in 2006 from the University of Michigan. I took a year off. I taught for Fayette County, which is the county that Lexington's in, just for the public school system, and then went to UK for law school. Graduated in 2010. I then clerked for Judge Caldwell, Karen Caldwell, who's she used to be the chief judge of the Eastern District of Kentucky, the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Kentucky. I clerked for her straight out of law school. And then after that clerkship, I clerked for Judge John Rogers, who is a judge on the United States Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit. I spent a year doing that. And then I went to the Justice Department for some time in San Francisco, which was a big move because I had a small daughter at the time. I now have two daughters. But we packed our bags and moved to San Francisco, and that was awesome. And I did immigration work for the Justice Department. And then less than 2 years later, I moved back to Lexington and was full-time a visiting assistant professor at the University of Kentucky. I taught all sorts of classes: civil procedure, evidence, professional responsibility, administrative law, and immigration law. But the kind of focus for me was administrative law and immigration law because I had worked for an administrative agency within the Justice Department doing immigration law, so that was kind of my fit. After I left the law school, after 2.5 years of teaching, I went to the Department of Homeland Security in Washington, so we literally moved coast to coast, which my wife wasn't happy about, and practiced immigration law for ICE, for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, in the DC area. Before moving back to Lexington, because I got a transfer back home
and I'm back at the Federal District Courthouse, and I'm a permanent staff attorney, and I mostly do civil rights and habeas cases for the judges that I work for. So that's me in a nutshell. I've got my wife's a nurse, and she is holding down the fort at home right now. And we have 2 daughters. One is 8 and one is 5. My oldest daughter is very much into Harry Potter, and she has informed me that the 4th book has arrived today, which she's very excited about. And I know it arrived because I got the alert on my phone that said the Amazon package has been delivered. It's amazing how if you have kids on Amazon, it's like not good, because all day it's like Amazon. I'm like, stop that. I'm a federal employee. And then my youngest is just, she has a lot of energy and she's really fun. My oldest is like very hardworking and studious, and my youngest just wants to go crazy. So, okay, so that's enough about me. I want you all to tell me a little bit about yourselves. I really enjoy, before, I still teach actually at UK too over the summers. The last 2 years I've taught the ethics class, professional responsibility at UK. And so all those classes I taught when I was a visiting assistant professor at UK, the professional responsibility that I teach over the summer at UK, those are all big classes. I mean, I've had 80 evidence students, and we've gone through all the hearsay exceptions and civil procedure, personal jurisdiction, subject matter. It was always big lecture-style classes, which I always enjoyed. But last semester, when I taught drafting for the first time here, it was awesome because it's a small group. I don't like to, if I can teach a class that's smaller and I don't have to stand up and kind of talk at you, it actually became much more enjoyable. I was like sitting down and we were just chatting about writing, and it was fun and low stress, and it was great. So that's my goal for this class, is that you come and you do the reading beforehand if you've got a drafting exercise to do. You'll see that a lot of it's kind of a good faith effort, especially the first time, and that it's just a class that you can kind of enjoy and learn about writing in a less than stressful environment. I've been a law student at a law school in Kentucky, which is very much like the one here. And law school is very stressful and anxiety producing. I will never forget how stressed out I felt in law school. I suspect some of you may feel like that from time to time. My goal is that drafting is not a class that you're like up all night stressing about, or up at all stressing about. Because you've got other classes that you can be stressed out about, and this doesn't have to be one of them. All right, so with that said, let's go around the room. We can start on either side.
She's more interesting.
Okay. So tell me your name. Tell me your undergrad. Obviously, you're here at law school, maybe where you're from, what you want to maybe do with your law degree. Anything. It's not formal. You could just, something newsy about yourself, and we'll go around.
Thanks for throwing me on the top.
I can start.
I'm Meredith Ellis. I'm born, raised, and continued education. I went here for undergrad from Louisville. Sorry, not that part. I was undergrad here. Came back for law school. I don't remember what else, but I want to work for the NCAA and/or NFL and sports compliance. Other than that,
are you a Bills fan? That was the question.
I play for the Bills, but I only cheer for them when they play someone I don't like.
They're already out of it. So.
Yeah, tough.
It was a sad weekend. I had a sad weekend in my house. Okay.
I'm Kayla Yerke. I'm a 3L. I'm originally from a small town in Wisconsin, and I went to UK for undergrad. I'm not sure what I want to do yet, but I would like to be in a courtroom and do trial stuff.
Cool. Litigation.
Yes.
Awesome. Do you want to do civil or criminal? Or
Probably civil.
Okay. Well, you're going to love this class. Hopefully. Maybe you'll hate it. Don't say that on the evaluation. Okay. But we'll do a lot of civil litigation stuff that's focused on all sorts of things, documents related to civil litigation.
I'm Joe Zerschmied. I'm a 3L. I went to OSU for undergrad.
I won't hold that against you.
Yeah.
Although I'm writing that down. No.
I'm originally from Cincinnati,
Okay,
and
cool.
then I want to do estate planning and tax stuff.
Fun. Are you from one of the suburbs or in Cincinnati?
Suburbs on the east side.
Okay. Which one?
Milford.
Oh, okay. Yeah. My brother and sister-in-law live in Madeira.
Oh yeah, right
So,
there.
Yeah, that's fun. Cool.
I'm Nick Westerly. I'm a 3L. I went to Center College in Danville, Kentucky for undergrad, and then came here obviously, and then after law school I plan to hopefully do civil litigation, likely do the firm that I've been helping out and working at lately, does medical malpractice defense, which I've taken a real interest to. So
Awesome.
hopefully do something like that.
Good. Very good.
I'm Alex Durham. I'm from Columbia, Kentucky. I went to Lindsey Wilson College, which is in Columbia. I'm not really sure what I want to do afterwards. Did I miss anything?
No, that's good. That's all right. I'm still not sure what the hell I want to do with my life. So.
My name's Hannah Koshanik. I'm a 3L. I'm from a very small town in northeast central Indiana. Went to Ball State
Okay.
for undergrad. Then was a probation officer for 3 years. Came to law school.
That's awesome.
Want to be a prosecutor after I graduate, or would work with an attorney general to help change human trafficking statutes.
So you know all about sentencing. Yeah, this is cool. We could just chat for hours. That's so cool. You're a probation officer. Very cool. That's awesome. Yeah, that's my whole world. I do a lot of that stuff. Pre-sentence reports. And
My dad does that.
yeah, we get a lot of criminal cases. I can talk about this later, but we get a lot of criminal cases in federal court, and a lot of people are kind of collaterally attacking their convictions or sentences, and we're saying, hey, there was this problem, and most of the time there wasn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm April Sato. I'm a 4L actually. I've gone part-time, so I'm really glad to be finished this semester after 4 full years of law school while working.
Yeah.
I am from Southern Indiana. I went to IUS, went on a long hiatus. I've been working at my job for a really long time, and I'm gonna continue working there when I get done. It's a bankruptcy law office, and it just works with the transition, like where I'm at in life, you know. I worked there for a long time. They don't want to keep working. They said, hey, we think this would be a great idea, and I did too. So
Good. Awesome. Very cool. That's good.
Anthony Johnson.
Okay.
I'm from Oldham County, right outside of Jefferson here.
Yeah.
Went to UK for undergrad, and came directly here. And I went to civil litigation as well, likely in healthcare and business.
Good. Very cool.
I'm Kirby Black. I'm a 3L as well. I'm from Paducah, Kentucky. Born and raised there. I went to Center College as well, Mitchell. And yeah.
Did y'all know each other?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. How many people are in the school? Like 1,200 or something?
12. The most recent number from this year is their highest ever. I think it's like
We're under 1,400.
right under
Cool.
like 1375. Something.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I
Good.
think yeah. So.
Okay. Good.
Everyone just in their face there. But and I went straight from undergrad to law school, and after I graduated, I'm working with Judge Thomas Russell in the Western District.
Good.
Which I ended up just happening to I ended up back home on that. And
Good.
then after that, I don't know, probably some sort of civil litigation maybe.
That's great. Yeah, one of our judges, obviously he's in the Western District, and I work for the judges in the East. But one of the judges, Judge Boom, is a new judge that was appointed by President Trump and confirmed by the Senate. And she is actually a swing judge. She sits on both the Eastern District of Kentucky and the Western District of Kentucky, which is unique. So that's a judge that we both have a connection to now. So that's cool. Yeah, she's a wonderful person too. And I know Judge Russell is a wonderful person as well.
I'm Michael Shelton. I'm a 2L, originally from Owensboro. I did my undergrad at WKU. I took a year off, worked for WKU, then came to law school. For the past year, I've been working with JCPS, the public school system, on their policy team. Probably going to go into ed policy, ed law after graduation.
Good. Very fun. A buddy of mine. Well, he was actually a student of mine, so. But then, we're probably all, well, you're younger than I am. Anyway, he's become a buddy of mine. He does education law in Frankfurt and really likes it, so he finds it rewarding.
My name is Amy Wenders. I'm a 3L. I was raised in Southern Indiana, went to U of L for undergrad, came straight here. Right now I work for a medical malpractice defense firm. Hope to work in that whenever I graduate.
Great. Wonderful.
My name is Nick Lexio. I'm a 3L. I went to the University of Florida for undergrad. I work at Baird at their downtown and estate planning.
Cool.
And hopefully I'll work with them when I graduate.
Good. Are you from Florida?
Yes.
Okay.
Clearwater.
From Clearwater?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My brother went to law school at Stetson,
Yeah.
which is in
Yeah.
well, it's in Gulfport.
Like 45 minutes south.
Yeah, that's
Great.
fine.
Yeah, great school.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Mark Hellmuller. I'm from Louisville. Went to WKU for undergrad. I've been working at a personal injury firm here in Louisville for a couple of years now. It's good to do that.
Good. Very cool.
I'm Kyler Brown. I'm a 3L. I'm also from Paducah. I went to Ole Miss for undergrad.
Oh, nice.
And after law school, probably looking to do something transactional.
Cool. Good. I am colleagues with 2.5 other attorneys. One of them is half-time, and our half-time colleague was a former student of mine, And she's now my colleague. She went to Ole Miss, and she talks about it all the time.
It's awesome.
And she's like, it's the best place on earth, and
That's awesome.
especially on Saturdays in the fall. So, yeah, that's awesome.
Hi, I'm Leanna Vonda Cruz. I'm originally from South Texas. I went to the University of Texas Pan American for undergrad and for grad school. I'm an Army wife and mom, so we move around a lot. I'm going to be traveling 3 hours on Sundays and Wednesdays.
Oh, wow.
Because my family is currently stationed at Fort Campbell.
Oh, my gosh.
So my wife is holding down the fort right
Okay.
now.
There you go.
Down in Fort Campbell, I've already received like 3 calls about Lunchables.
3 hours, you win the prize, yeah.
Yeah, well, last semester I was traveling 40 minutes to and from, but we just recently moved, so.
That's awesome.
So I'm a 2L. This summer I'll be interning with Army JAG, and I actually want to work with them on the civilian side.
Good, great. That's awesome, good. Okay.
My name is Taylor Bacchus. I'm a 2L. I'm originally from Indianapolis. I attended Indiana University for undergrad, and I'm not sure what I want to do with my life.
That's okay, that's good.
Dimitri Johnson. I'm a 2L as well. Went to Michigan State. Huge Bills fan.
Okay,
No,
Bills
I'm
fan.
really not. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
so double.
I
Michigan
should've-
State instead of Michigan, which is like one ding.
I
And
know.
the fake out on the Bills fan.
I
So
should've
you're
just
trying
left.
thin ice, I'm teasing. Okay.
And I'm actually looking for a different internship for this summer. I did some stuff in Dallas with a company, and it was kind of weird because I got to use my undergrad, so I worked with the engineer department and the legal department, so it was like a mix, but I'm looking at securities firms for
Cool.
this summer. So
Are you from Michigan?
I was from Michigan, but grew up in Dallas, and
Okay.
then moved back for college. Yes.
Cool. It's a lot colder.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. Don't.
I like it here for winter.
Yeah, it's kind of mild. Yeah. Michigan. I was just there over the. Something about being in Michigan in the winter with your in-laws. It's about as bad as it gets. So don't tell my wife.
She's from Wisconsin, so you definitely.
Yeah, that's.
I can relate.
That's tough.
Yeah, it's a dark place. Okay. All right, so that's introductions. Let's review the syllabus so you know what's going on in the course, and we'll talk about kind of the structure of it, and then we'll get into some of the topics. This is on Twen. I mean, if you go on, you'll see on the left side, the first tab there is the syllabus tab. You can pull it up as a PDF. Obviously, we're having some sort of internet issue, so we'll just go old school here. I didn't even know they still had things like basically overhead projectors, so, but they do, so here we are. All right, so the first thing is this course overview. Can you all see this? Basically, this is just kind of the overview to the course. It says the course examines the fundamental principles behind legal drafting and provides students with extensive drafting experience. That's certainly true. You'll do a lot of drafting exercises in the course. The class, it's important to know that the class does focus on documents related to civil litigation. So we're going to start off by talking about complaints that are filed, civil complaints that are filed in court. We're going to focus probably on federal court, complaints that you would file in federal court. So you got to think about things related to subject matter jurisdiction a little bit. But complaints as the initial pleading, answers as the responsive pleading, and then motions to dismiss and motions for summary judgment. Those will be the kind of 4 big things that we'll begin with, really focusing on the first 3, complaints, answers, and motions to dismiss, right? So there's there's definitely going to be a civil procedure component to the course. It's not, we're not testing you. There's no test at all. There's a final drafting exercise, but or portfolio that you'll have to complete. But we are going to be bringing in concepts related to civil procedure. Complaints are obviously the initial document, the initial pleading that's filed in federal court if you're initiating a civil case. And then in response to that, the defendant will have to answer the complaint by filing either a substantive answer or, more commonly, in certain circumstances, a motion to dismiss. And that'll bring us over to things like Rule 12 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, which provide the various bases for moving to dismiss a complaint, including but not limited to things like lack of subject matter jurisdiction, 12b1, or failure to state a claim upon which relief may be granted, 12b6. There's motions for summary judgment and discovery-related documents as well. We focus on those. The first 3 are the big ones. We are going to talk about some documents related to criminal litigation. So if you're interested in that, I think that'll be interesting to you, hopefully. We'll talk about things like indictments, plea agreements, motions to suppress and in limine, and jury instructions. Last semester, I was talking to our U.S. attorney in the Eastern District, Rob Duncan. He's a wonderful person. He's the U.S. attorney. And, it'd be interesting to see if we could get him or maybe his counterpart in the Western District to come talk to you all about that, because, these individuals know a lot more about criminal litigation than I do, but I do see it almost every day. But we're not going to focus as much on drafting those documents, but I want you to be aware that they're kind of out there. Part of the reason why we don't have you drafting substantive indictments or plea agreements, it's such a niche area that if you end up working at a U.S. Attorney's Office or working at a Commonwealth Attorney's Office or County Attorney's Office, chances are you're going to be following their policies on drafting those documents very closely. And it's going to be a lot different than the kind of generalized principles that we're going to learn in a class like this, pulling from a variety of sources. So it's worth kind of knowing what's out there, but I think the wiser course for our class, I think, is to focus on documents that are more commonly seen in civil litigation, like complaints, answers, and motions to dismiss. But after we talk about criminal litigation and the documents associated with criminal litigation, we're going to focus more intensely on documents that fall under what I call the category of informing and persuading. And it may seem kind of hokey in a way at the beginning of the semester, although I think it ended up working really well last semester, to draft things like emails, substantive emails or office memos, before you even get into things like trial and appellate briefs, and then finally we'll talk about judicial opinions. The reason is that is a very common thing that I think young associates or law clerks or just, any kind of person starting off in a new career with a law degree is going to have to do. You're going to be kind of given some sort of substantive legal problem. You're going to have to analyze the problem, apply the law to the facts, and come to kind of a thoughtful conclusion. That skill where you're kind of informing the reader about what is going on in your situation and then persuading them as to the right answer, that's a skill that I think cuts across a lot of these documents. And so while it may sound like you're going to have to draft an email, it's really more akin to tackling a substantive legal problem and coming across with expository type of writing that's both informative to the reader, but also persuasive. And really, that is where I think the crux of the class kind of comes together. That's where it all starts to come together, because what you'll see, we're going to pull, I don't want to get too far ahead, but there's no assigned casebook, but each week we're going to kind of focus on a different area of drafting, focusing kind of on some of these different documents. But I think what you'll start to see is we're not just learning the kind of technical aspects of certain documents like complaints, like headings and how you number factual allegations. There's definitely like a technical component to it. But I think the more overarching theme I'm trying to get across to you all is how to most effectively inform the reader of your writing about your topic, and then persuade them that you've got the right answer. And what you'll see, I think, is there is a specific way to do that best, most persuasively. And it's really kind of, we'll meander over to the side for a minute and I'll kind of highlight this a little bit. It's kind of something called like a top-down proof-like form of writing. Right? Think of like a law school exam that you guys take, like any subject, I don't know, torts, right? Okay, everybody's taking torts, right? You studied negligence, duty, breach, causation, and damages, right? Those are like the four elements. Causation has both but-for causation and proximate causation, but those are the four elements of a prima facie case of negligence. So on a law school exam, you might say something like, the issue in this, you'll be given a fact pattern that you have to read and kind of scribble on, and what the hell's this? This person's falling, and then a barrel comes out of a window, and all kinds of shit happens. Mm-hmm. And then you've got to answer this question, and the question is Dan the defendant negligent in this case, and thus liable to Patty the plaintiff? And you'll have to answer that in kind of a substantive way. Well, in law school, they try typically to teach you to first identify what the issue in the case is, right? Like the issue in this case, or the first issue in this case, is whether the defendant was negligent. and then you'll have a long kind of statement of the law on negligence, right? You'll list the elements. There are 4 elements of a prima facie case of negligence: duty, breach, causation, damages. And then you'll go to the first element, and you'll talk about duty, right? And you might talk about the duty of care that landowners owe to invitees versus licensees or trespassers or whatever is applicable to your fact pattern. You come to a statement of the law, you'll provide a statement of the law, and then you'll apply that law to the facts and come to a conclusion about whether or not the defendant owed the plaintiff a duty of care. And assuming the defendant did owe the plaintiff a duty of care, then you'll go on to the next element and you'll lay out the law. The next issue is, did the defendant breach the duty of care? And then you'll lay out all the law on breach, and then you'll apply the law, and then you'll come to a conclusion, and then you go to causation, and then you go to... Does that sound familiar? That's kind of... Do they teach that anymore? Iraq issue? That's what we do, right? That's kind of what lawyers do, but that's not the most persuasive way, right, to argue that somebody was negligent, right? If you were really trying to persuade someone that the defendant was negligent, you probably wouldn't teach them about negligence. You would say it up front. You would say, Dan was negligent in this case. That is because Dan owed Patty a duty of care, breached that duty of care, caused Patty's harm, and Patty suffered damages. New paragraph. Dan owed Patty a duty of care. You're affirmatively telling you this is the answer. And then you're going to prove what the answer is. Dan owed Patty a duty of care, period. That is because Patty was an invitee of Dan's, and under the law, landowners owe, I'm just making this up, landowners owe invitees duties of care. Therefore, Dan had a duty of care to Patty. New paragraph. Dan breached that duty of care. That is because of this. It's kind of like if I was trying to convince you to go to Starbucks, or let's say Quills as opposed to Starbucks. Well, I'm holding a Starbucks cup, so let's say Starbucks. Quills, I think, is probably better now. Quills is like a new thing to me. I'm from Lexington. They don't have Quills there. But let's say I was trying to convince you to go to Starbucks instead of Quills, right? I could say the issue here is whether you should go to Quills or Starbucks. Let me first tell you all about Quills. Quills is located on this street, and they serve these items, and they do this and this and this, blah, 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 blah. All of this law on Quills, right? And then I could say, on the contrary, Starbucks is a blah, 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 blah. I could tell you about the prices and the goods and all of it, never really kind of getting you to an answer, and then only later kind of deep down in the analysis, after you're trying to hold all that in your head, would I then apply all of that law to your situation, which is, should I choose Quills or Starbucks, right? That is an informative way. You're certainly informing the reader about a lot of principles related to both coffee shops, but you're not really persuading anybody, not really most effectively, are you? Why do we teach law students to write it that way? Because what you're trying to do for your professor is prove that you know the law, is prove that you studied the outline, right? Just like the bar exam. They want you to write it in the issue, rule, analysis, conclusion format because the bar examiner people who grade these things have no life. And they want to just check off all the points of law, right? But they don't really give a shit if you are arguing this persuasively or that persuasively. Legal writing is very different, right? Legal writing, legal drafting, a big part of being a lawyer is not just informing people about what the law is, but also persuading them that you've got the right answer, right? So if I want to convince you that Starbucks is a better place to go than Quills, I'm going to come in at the beginning and I'm going to say Starbucks is superior to Quills for 3 reasons. 1, the coffee is more affordable. 2, they have more options at Starbucks. And 3, these people are looking at me like I'm insane. It's going off the rails. That's what happens when you get the young visitors to come in and go shaky. And 3, Starbucks has more food selection than Quills. So I've immediately told you what the answer is and the 3 reasons why. First substantive paragraph. Starbucks is more affordable than Quills, period. After all, a recent study of coffee shops indicated that coffee on average costs 25% less at Starbucks than Quills. Cite the study. Right? You're being persuaded. And you also know clearly where the entire thing is going, right? You know every step of the way. If I'm saying upfront what the answer is and what the 3 reasons are for the answer, you can bet your butt that the next 3 paragraphs are going to be the answers to the problem, the 3 reasons. First substantive paragraph is going to be the first reason. The second substantive paragraph is going to be the second reason. The third substantive paragraph is going to be the third reason. And you might have to deal with things like counter-arguments along the way, right? Like, I might have a paragraph that says, Starbucks is more affordable than Quills. After all, a recent study indicated that prices are 25% lower at Starbucks. See this. Thus, since Starbucks is more affordable, that is one of the reasons it's a better option. Then you might have to deal with counter-argument. Like, it is true that a study came out of Chase Law School indicating that Quills recently lowered their prices. However, you know those people at Chase. No. You would say something more persuasive like, however, that was not a peer-reviewed study, and thus it's less reliable. Therefore, that study should be discounted, and Starbucks is indeed more affordable. Second read, you know what I mean? We're going to talk about this a lot. So it's night 1. I'm kind of running around with a bunch of caffeine, obviously, in me. But I'm trying to kind of get you all to think about how this course, I really think, is about kind of 2 things. It's about learning the documents that are most common in practicing law, focusing on documents related to civil litigation. You're going to learn how to draft a complaint. You're going to learn how to draft an answer. You're going to learn how to draft a motion to dismiss. But you're also going to learn about things that you're going to have to do as a young lawyer, like send your senior associate or junior partner or senior partner an email analyzing a substantive legal problem, or drafting kind of a formal office memo for one of your supervisors, or writing a trial or appellate brief, or drafting a judicial opinion, right? But what you'll see, complaints and answers are a little bit unique. I think that the other documents, motions to dismiss, and then these other documents like emails, memos, trial and appellate briefs, judicial opinions, those all kind of most effectively take this same top-down, bottom-line, upfront format. And I think it's really the best way to write. I really believe that. I mean, after it's now 10 years since I graduated from law school, and I am convinced that this is the most effective way to both inform your reader about what's going on, but also persuade them. And really, even if you're writing for a court, right? Even if you're resolving a motion for a court, you still want to state effectively what the answer is, right? Courts are still, they're not necessarily, they're definitely not taking one side or the other in a biased way. But if one person's moving for the court for something and one person's opposing that motion, the court's going to decide that. And when they decide it, they want to persuade the readers that's the right answer, right? So if I'm resolving your negligence case, I can draft the judicial opinion in a way that's also very informative, but also persuasive. Have you all read judicial opinions that you think, this is terrible? They have these long standard of review sections, Celotex, Liberty Lobby, and it's all this blah, la, 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 la. And then you get past the standard of review, and it's like, now let me tell you all the law in this area that we're talking about, property disputes, la, la, la. You're like, where is any of this going? That's bad legal writing. Believe it or not, judges, law clerks, they don't write, a lot of them don't write well either, right? And so we're going to try to teach in this course how to really kind of make your writing more concise, make it tighter, make it more informative, and much more persuasive. It's going to be crisp and clean, and you'll know why paragraphs are there. It won't just be a random paragraph that shows in. It'll fit like a puzzle, like a top-down kind of proof-like way of writing. It may sound weird, but I think if you think about the Starbucks cup example or the negligence example, there's kind of two ways to write those answers, and you can write it in kind of an IRAC format, which is what you should probably do on a law school exam or a bar exam, but it doesn't make for good legal writing. And I think you'll see that as time goes on. Okay, so finally, if time permits, we're going to study other documents, including contracts, wills, and proposed legislation. But I got to be honest, that's not going to be the crux of the course. The crux of it is complaints, answers, and motions to dismiss. We'll talk a little bit about motions for summary judgment, and we'll briefly discuss criminal litigation, but then we're going to also focus heavily on emails, memos, trial and appellate briefs, and judicial opinions. Those 9 or so, plus one more, will make up approximately 10 drafting exercises you'll do throughout the semester. Okay, learning outcomes. I mean, this honestly is because the administration is like, you have to put a list of learning outcomes in there. It's like, okay. I mean, but the bottom line is, these are things that are legitimately, the skills you're going to draw from, like learn critical writing skills, gain experience drafting documents, have a working knowledge of other documents. 4 is exactly right, which is understand the importance of conveying information in a clear way, appreciate the basic skill of persuasion, and have experience drafting documents focused on informing and persuading. Be familiar with other documents, and then be able to review a case file, and then take that file and turn it into a piece of writing that is both informative and persuasive. Okay, reading assignments. No required case book. We're going to use books, treatises, law review articles. We're going to read a lot of not a lot. I mean, none of the reading is like that intense. There's not like 300 pages of reading. That's insane. Nobody's going to read that. One of the judges that I work for teaches a class at UK periodically, and I think he assigned like hundreds of pages of reading. And like nobody read it, and he was like, "Why does nobody read it?" And we were like, "Because you don't assign that much reading. Like nobody's gonna read a novel in a week. Like he's a wonderful person." But, anyway, yeah. So we'll read. Like I'm combing through a lot of the books that I have. There's some good books. Margaret Temple Smith is out of Florida. For the Florida person, yeah, I picked it for you. It's random. George Cooney and Donna Looper are very good, and Elizabeth Fahans, this is probably the best book. But instead of having you go spend a bunch of money, we will just violate copyright laws. I will make copies, and under the fair use doctrine, we will post them on Twen, and then you will you'll read whatever is necessary for that week. And 1, 2, 3 articles, 15, 20, 25 pages. Some are longer, but then you can skim them. The reading isn't intense, right? And it's also, there's no final exam at the end, right? And we'll talk about how the grade is, but it's going to be weekly drafting exercises coupled with a final portfolio project that you'll have a couple weeks to work on. And then you turn it in, and then you're done. Before finals even get going, hopefully. So it's pretty low stress. For your convenience, I will post reading materials each week on Blackboard and Twen. We're not going to use Blackboard, we'll just use Twen. You must complete any assigned reading before class and be prepared to discuss the reading in class. Okay, so page 2. This is kind of what everybody wants to know. How the hell is he grading this thing? Okay, well here it is. Each student's grade will be primarily based on his or her performance on 1, a series of regular drafting exercises, and 2, the completion of a final portfolio project. This is how I graded it last semester, and I'm telling you, it really seemed to work out fine. The students seemed to like it. It was relatively low stress throughout the semester. The final portfolio project wasn't bad. And the students did relatively well, I thought. I mean, there's always a range, but I thought everybody seemed to do pretty well. Okay, regular drafting exercises is the first of the 2 components. Almost every week near the end of the class, I will assign a drafting exercise based on material covered in a reading assignment and discussed in class. Although there will be several different types of drafting exercises, many will involve reviewing a case file and drafting a document based on the rules, principles, and skills we discussed. After I assign a drafting exercise near the end of a class, that exercise must be completed and turned into me electronically 5 days later on Saturday by no later than 5 p.m., unless I state otherwise. Over the course of the semester, each student will complete approximately 10 such drafting exercises worth a total of 30% of the final grade. Okay, so here's how it works. Basically, you'll have a reading assignment for next class, okay? And you will do that, and we'll talk about how this will work, but you'll read the reading assignment for next class, and then we'll come into class, and we'll talk about what you read in like a very informal setting, but we'll kind of go over it substantively. Then, towards the end of class, I'm going to say, okay, you've now read material. We've now discussed the material in class. It's now the end of class. Go out and do this drafting exercise that you have 5 days to do, and turn it in to me via email by Saturday at 5. And it will be about what you've read and what we've talked about in class. So if you read about complaints and then we talk about complaints in class, you may then have to draft a complaint. And you'll have 5 days to do it. And then you'll submit it to me. Now, how am I grading that? The beginning is really just good faith. It's really for you. It's not for you to like 10 times go home and in 5 days have anxiety-ridden panic. No, it's really for you to like, don't do anything tonight because that's insane, right? Or any Monday night. Just go home and like watch whatever's on TV or chill out. Grab a cocktail if you want to. Have fun. And then like the next night or the Wednesday night or Thursday night, sit down and work on the drafting exercise. And it shouldn't be a whole production, right? It's a good faith effort. Because when you turn it into me on Saturday, I'm going to spend, this will sound like a fun life, spend my Sunday reading these. But it's fun. I enjoy reading what you guys have to say. And so I will read them, and then I will come in class on Monday, and we'll talk about them. We'll spend the beginning of the class talking about what I saw generally, some of the things I think you need to work on, how I would have done things differently. You'll be I'll have a copy of what you submitted. You'll have a copy still of what you've submitted. You'll be taking notes on what you did, how you might have changed. Oh, I shouldn't have put this here. Oh, this complaint wasn't drafted well, and here's why. But if you turn it in on time and you took a good faith effort, you're going to get your points for that, okay? So that's to keep you moving along the semester, doing all of these different drafting exercises. So the 30% is like a 30% good faith completion. Okay, now the final portfolio project is towards the end of the semester. I'm going to assign this portfolio project, and there's 2 aspects to it. One is I'm going to point you to 5 of the 10, roughly, drafting exercises that you already did. And taking into account what you've learned over the course of the semester, you're going to then have to turn those into final drafts. So you'll have done 10. At the end of the semester, I'm going to be like, okay, 5 of those 10, and I will now identify which 5. Those are ones I want you to go from good faith draft, rough draft, to final draft. That's the one aspect of the final portfolio. The other is, and here are 2 to 4 new assignments. I think last semester I did 3. Or maybe it was 2. Maybe it was 3, I don't remember. New assignments, and that together, the 5 that you're turning into final draft form, and the 2 to 4 that are new, but will be one of the same. It'll be a new file and a new complaint or a new motion or a judicial opinion, but it will not be a new type of document. You will have already drafted that type of document. That will collectively be assigned to you to spend 2 weeks on, and you will then turn that in as a final portfolio project. And you'll have 2 weeks to work on that independently, like out in the world. It's not like come in and work for 4 hours like crazy. No, it's just writing. It's like a seminar paper, kind of, except there's going to be 7 to 9 exercises, 5 of which you've already done. And then that's 70% of your grade. And then classroom participation is like I reserve the right to adjust your grade up or down 1 increment to reflect notably good or bad classroom participation, which is like just come and participate and don't miss a bunch of classes when it meets only once a week. Like that shit happens, right? Like if your kid is sick or something, or you're sick, or like let me know. I'm not unreasonable. I may be sick. Hopefully not. God, it's bad. My kids are like little petri dishes that come home. They're like, look, I've got pink eye. I'm like, oh my God. Then my wife's the nurse. She brings stuff home. It's like, so hopefully nobody will be sick. But, we can deal with that as it comes. Any questions about that? What were the structure of the classes? Weekly reading assignments. We will then come in, talk about the reading assignment. Then at the end of class, I will assign a drafting exercise. And I'll say, hey, get this to me by Saturday. And it's going to be based on what we've read and what we've talked about in class. You'll turn it in on Saturday, and then you'll spend the next day and a half or 2 days reading the reading assignment for the next class, which won't be hard. It'll be like a 10-page article that'll be on answers instead of complaints. And then we'll come in, we'll spend the beginning of the class talking about the drafting exercise on complaints. Then we'll turn our attention to answers, and I will have been like, okay, we read about answers. We've now talked about answers. Here's a little drafting exercise on answers. Draft an answer based on this. And that's it. And we just keep going. Questions? Some of you look like, oh God, this is going to be long. It's really, hopefully it won't be too bad. I think I really started, I was kind of wondering how it was going to play out last semester because I'd never done a small class like this. But it ended up being kind of fun, and people came in and they were just like, here's what I would have done differently, or here's what I think made this a strong answer, or this one a weak one. And it was just, people brought food, like if you want to bring your dinner, it's totally casual. Like I plan on, first we need to get out of the basement. This is like not good. So we'll try to make a plan for that. And then it'll just be like a more relaxed, less kind of law school setting. So, okay. Electronic devices. I don't mind if you bring a laptop. I put this in there just to sound like I'm the least intimidating person. You will continue to come to realize that, which is the opposite of what they teach you when they're like, when you're going to be a law professor, you need to be super intimidating and scare people. I'm like, nobody's scared of this. My kids are like, they're like burning the place down. Nobody's intimidated. But I do think it's like, don't, abuse the laptop. If you want to come in, like, try to not, like, be live tweeting the class, right? I mean, that's kind of rude. I remember when I was a law student, there was a classmate of mine literally was, like, playing a game. He had a joystick out at one point. I'm like, this is insane. I mean, torts is not that interesting with this professor. But, like, put the, Fortnite or whatever. I don't know, they didn't have that then, but you know what I mean. Put that away. So yeah, you can use your laptop, but make sure you're using it for educational purposes. And then any other electronic device, obviously, you can't use. And I don't allow you to record the class because I want to encourage you to come. And so students always ask, can I record the class and then listen back? This is not the type of class where, like, if you don't get it down, you've missed the secret sauce. Like, this isn't that. So you definitely don't need to record for that reason. And you shouldn't record because then it does a disservice to your classmates who took the time to come to a night class, which I think is a sacrifice, especially for some of us who are traveling. So don't record the class. Class attendance and tardiness. Class attendance is mandatory. I follow the law school's policies, including the absence limitation rule, which if we got technical about it, we could look it up and say you could only miss X number of classes, which you would see is like a very low amount, given the fact that we meet only once a week. So if you think you're going to miss class, try not to. But if you think you're going to, just reach out. And we can kind of talk about it and come up with kind of a solution to the issue. But I would really kind of encourage you to not miss, because then you kind of like get behind. All right, so 1, 2. Oh, okay. Is this make sense? I mean, I feel like the document camera is weird, and it's not how I thought we were going to start. Contact information. You could take this down. I mean, it's on the syllabus, so once Twen is working for you, you'll have it. But that's my cell phone number, and that's my email address. I apparently have a Louisville email address. I mean, I have a U.S. Courts email address, but I try to, for professional reasons, like I think that should be my U.S. Courts email address, so I always use my Gmail address for you all. So when you email me things, you can just send it to my Gmail address. People are like, I sent it to your Louisville address. I'm like, I didn't even know I had one. And I still don't know what it is. So I probably do have one, but I don't know where it is. So just send it to me. Gmail comes to my phone and I'll get it. So you can send your email, your drafts to there. What about meeting? So it's hard for me to meet students just because my office is in the federal courthouse in Lexington. So you're welcome to drive 75 miles to come meet with me. But if you want to meet, we should meet. And we could meet before class. After is probably hard because it's like bedtime. But if you wanted to meet like at Starbucks beforehand or just to talk anywhere, we can do that. And we can set up a time. I will definitely schedule conferences. This is something I did last semester. I did 2 types of conferences. Phone conferences, which I know sounds like weird, but it's fine. We could talk on the phone. And we did. I talked to my students last semester. And I set up in-person conferences where I came, took a day off of work at the courthouse, came to Louisville, and met one by one in 20 to 30 minute increments, and it was like an 8-hour day. And I just met individually, and by the end, it was like, you know, that casino effect when you're like, what day is it? It feels like you're in like a smoky casino or something. By the end, I looked like, you know, crazed, and I felt kind of crazed. But it's important for you all, especially in a writing class, to have one-on-one conferences with your professor. I mean, you have to have that. You can't have a writing class and not get substantive feedback from the instructor on how your writing is going. I do that not in lieu of, but kind of somewhat in lieu of every week giving you individualized feedback. It would be a little crazy to take upwards of 20 of you, get them on Saturday, and then turn them all around by Monday, or really the next day. So you won't get as much kind of immediate individual feedback on every drafting exercise. But you'll turn them in, I'll briefly review them all to determine that you did a good faith effort, and then really try to see some of the trends, take notes on that, and then I'll come into class having prepared the lecture on complaints or on answers or on motions to dismiss with a thought on how you all did in mind, so that when we're going through the exercise and I'm telling you what I put, you're taking notes on yours. Not just for fun, but also for the thought that, hey, you may have to turn that complaint or that answer, that motion to dismiss or that judicial opinion or that writing exercise, you'll have to turn it into final draft form. So it behooves you to kind of come to class ready to kind of mark up your own work. And so we'll do that. But even though you won't get immediate instant feedback throughout all of your assignments, you will get feedback on all of your assignments, and that will come during those individualized conferences. I'm going to sit down with I have folders for each one of you, and when you turn in your drafting exercises, I'm going to put in your folder all of the exercises, and then when we meet, both by phone and in person, I'm going to sit down and have your folder with me, and then you will get individualized feedback for all of your assignments, so that by the time the final portfolio project rolls around in April, I guess, which seems so far away, but I guess it'll be here soon, you will know exactly kind of what areas you maybe need to improve on, what you've done well, and kind of how things are going generally. Any questions, concerns? In kind of like full disclosures, like students did well last semester. I was pretty impressed. Like, I don't see any reason why like this class also can't do well, you know? And there's always a range, especially of people who have interests. Like some people just seem less interested, some people seem super interested, some people was like of moderate interest. That doesn't always correspond to how people end up doing in the course, but my point is like, you know, it's a low stress kind of fun, hopefully for you, class where you can really kind of learn about maybe a new way of writing or a new way of thinking about legal writing. Other information is kind of the standard law school template information. I reserve the right to change the syllabus, the Title IV and Clery Act notification that you've often seen, and then of course the honor code governs the class. You've got to do your own work, especially in a writing class. I mean, it's important for you to do your own work substantively on each of the assignments, and then definitely, of course, on the final drafting exercise. You need to be kind of producing your own writing. Students sometimes ask about like templates. You know, do you recommend like looking at a bunch of templates? I really don't. I mean, I think you could go Google complaint template. You'll get about 10,000. So it's really not going to behoove you to kind of stray outside the reading assignments and the material that you'll get, which will often include kind of sample documents. So I really just don't encourage that. I frankly, not that anybody's necessarily asking for my advice right now, but I never really encourage it in any substantive class. Like when I taught evidence, students are like, oh, should I get the Emanuels or the Gilberts? And I'm like, I'm not reading that. And if your professor's not reading it, which they're not, it's not really going to help you. Like you want to be kind of in tuned. It's more so maybe for like a doctrinal class, in tune with what your professor is thinking about the material and less about kind of what some horn book that I'm not reading says about it. So I think the same is true. Don't even bother with trying to find a bunch of templates because it's not going to help. Okay, last thing, and this is also on the, what time is it? It must be like, speaking of casino effect. this is the tentative starting schedule. So at the end of the syllabus, what you'll see, and I will update this as we go, but I put this schedule, and I constantly am updating it throughout the semester so you kind of know where we're going. I used to, in some of my other classes, I used to put out kind of a full list of like every reading assignment for every single week, and all the topics that we were going to cover. And then inevitably, February would come, and I was like, oh, we're behind on venue. We're not going to get to, subject matter jurisdiction for another 2 weeks, and then I have to adjust it all. And I don't like doing that. I would rather kind of keep it flexible. So I put us out 3 classes, but then I'll just kind of update it as we go. So we don't have to, especially in a class like this, which, it's not a bar class. You're taking this because you're hoping to learn how to draft documents. We can be flexible, right? There's no need to like race through material if we're not comfortable. So what are we doing today? We're having our class discussion. We're doing introductions. We're reviewing the syllabus and the structure of the class. And I'm going to spend a few more minutes after this discussing the topics that are going to be covered during the semester. Then, here's how the class is always going to be structured. We're going to finish the class, and towards the end of the substantive part of the course, I'm going to say, okay, here's your drafting exercise. And we'll often go on to in the class, pull it up, and I'll walk through what the assignment is going to be. And I'm going to say, okay, that drafting exercise is due by Saturday at 5 p.m. Once you turn that in, then I want you to turn your attention to the reading assignment for Monday's class, right? Well, that's the same format, except there's no drafting exercise this week because it's the first week, okay? So all you have to do is go on and complete these 3 reading assignments before class on Monday, which is What is Good Legal Writing and Why Does It Matter?, which is a really good piece by Mark Osbeck at Michigan. The Plain Writing Act of 2010, which is just an interesting piece of statutory authority that just shows that Congress kind of wanted good principles of good legal writing and good writing generally to kind of be incorporated in some of the work that agencies like the Justice Department do, which I just think is kind of fascinating. And then this piece on a philosophy of drafting by Kumi and Looper. So just kind of very basic articles about principles of good legal writing. And then you'll read those. We'll come to class on Monday, which is 1 week from today, of course. Note that there's no class after that, right? The week after, we're off for MLK Junior Day. But we still have class on the 13th. We'll come in, and what are we going to do? We're going to talk about these reading assignments, the characteristics of good legal writing, and we're going to talk about the types of legal writing. Then we're going to, at the end of that, class will be coming to an end. We will assign the drafting exercise, which will be due. Now, normally it would be due just 5 days later, but because this is a weird kind of situation, not weird, but this is a unique situation because of the MLK holiday, you're actually going to have until the 25th of January to finish the assignment, which is just to complete a short exercise critiquing an assigned piece of legal writing. I will formally post that. I will say this is the piece of legal writing, and these are the questions that you have to answer. It's really not hard. Is this a good piece of legal writing? Why or why not? I mean, it's not stressful. And then the reading assignment will be to do this, read this new piece from Temple Smith and Couples. And then you'll come to class. And this is the format we're going to continue on with. We'll start by reviewing the drafting exercise you did. We will have a discussion of the reading, and then a little bit of a lecture. And then at the end of class, I'm going to say, okay, for the next class, here's your drafting exercise. We'll review this case file that I'll assign to you and complete this exercise. And when you do that, turn it in to me by Saturday at 5, and then turn to the reading assignment for Monday. Does that make sense? It's a very, I'm a little bit obsessive compulsive. It's a very structured course where at the end of class, here's your drafting exercise, turn that in to me by Saturday at 5, then turn to the reading assignment, we'll come to class, we'll talk about the drafting exercise, we'll talk about the reading, and then we'll end class with a new exercise. And we'll go to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And that's it. And there will be moments where I'll just be like, oh, no exercise this week. It won't be every single week, right? Because there's 14 or 15 weeks in the class, and you'll probably only end up completing 9 or 10 substantive exercises, none of which should give you anxiety. Literally. I mean, I was a law student. I remember walking out of some of my classes and just like, does anybody else have anxiety? Like, law school is very anxiety producing. Don't feel like that in this class. It's not for that, right? The only kind of, I guess, mild stress would come towards the end as you've got your portfolio project. But even then, if you've come to class consistently, you've kind of edited your documents in class, took notes, kind of made changes, you're pretty much going to be good to go with the 5 that you're going to have to turn into a final draft form, and then you really have 2 weeks just to focus on 2 to 4 new ones. And you'll have already done other ones. I may not assign the judicial opinion that you did for class. I may, but I may not, and instead may assign you a new one. But the old one will serve as a good practice for the new one. There's also, okay, so that's kind of the structure. Any questions about the structure? I know this is like a lot of information. The syllabus is going to be on Twen. What else was I going to say? I'm trying to think. So that's the structure of the course. Oh, another thing about the final drafting exercise. What I try to do, and I have to look at the calendar, the final portfolio, I try to assign it so that you have 2 weeks to do it. Last semester what I did was I had our last class. Let's say our last class is going to be on a Monday, I don't know when. But I'm going to make our last class earlier than that. Last class for us. And then there'll be another Monday, and what we'll do is we will skip class, and then there will be a Monday, and then it will be due. So what'll happen, I think, maybe is like, we're missing some classes. I don't know. This makes no sense. Partly because it's 8 o'clock and I'm already tired. The point is, here's what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to get at you turning in your portfolio project and being totally done with this class before you have to turn to your final exams, right? Because that's like a human thing to do, right? Like a not human thing is to be like, I don't care what else you have going on in your life. Just deal with it. No. There's a reason why we can't get this class out of the way before you have to think about your other classes, right? Like, let's just do that, right? And so how can we make up some of this time? Well, some of the time we can make up by having our individualized meetings, right? We're counting that. Like, if you're meeting me at Starbucks on like a random day, like you're like, that sucks. But it's not that bad. We can like drink lattes together. After all, it's better than quills, right? But like, we'll count that as class time, right? Like, we're meeting outside of class, that counts. If you and I are chatting on the phone, I mean, I'm sure there's other people you'd rather chat on the phone with. That counts. So what we'll do is we'll count some of that time as a way of kind of ending the class earlier so that you don't have to think about legal drafting when you're thinking about Con Law 2 final or, whatever other amazing classes are being offered here at Brandeis. Any questions about it? Does that make sense? I don't know I just wrote this down. I don't know what the exact schedule is going to look like, but you can plan on turning in, and I will give you specific dates, but you will end up turning in your final portfolio project in advance of the beginning of the final exam period, and hopefully the reading period or whatever. Do you all know when that is this semester? Yeah. So
Monday is our last day, and then reading day will be Tuesday.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll take a look. I mean, more to come on this. All we're thinking about now is this, right? Which is, okay, you're good for a week. Basically, all you have to do is go online, make sure you're registered on the Twen site for the class. I also want you to kind of formally join it, however you do that. Just click join or whatever. Because then it will also allow me to blast out emails. Like if I want to email the whole class, I can just click one button, type out the message, and then I can email you all. So go on Twen, make sure you're signed up, review the syllabus, and then what you'll see also on Twen is there is a reading assignment tab. You'll click on that, and literally there will be a folder that will say reading assignment to be completed before class on Monday, 1:13. And there will be 3 PDFs. You can print them, you can not print them, right? We're just going to talk about that material in class. There's no test, so just read them for enjoyment and see what you can get out of them. And then we will come in class on Monday, 1 week from today, and we'll talk about what you read. it'll be good. Bring food. I think one class last semester I brought like Chick-fil-A. I was like, sorry, but I'm hungry. And that was good. So you can do the same thing. Bring quills even. It's not as good. But okay. All right, guys. We can leave early. I will see you all weekend today.